This is the AOC 27G2. 144 Hz, 1 millisecond response time, G-Sync and FreeSync compatible, 27 inches, and yes, it's IPS, all for $200. So welcome to Tech2BDiscovered. Starting with features, we are first going to take a look at section 1.1, looks. The AOC 27G2 looks overall gamery, but in a subtle way. The thin bezels along with a thin red stripe that runs along the bottom of the monitor, among other accents, looks quite attractive to most people. This monitor, even if you don't like gamery aesthetics, will blend into most people's desks quite well. Next is physical features, meaning features such as ports, the stand, etc. Starting with the ports, you get one VGA, one DisplayPort 1.2, one 3.5mm audio jack, and two HDMI 1.4 ports, with both HDMI and DisplayPort cables, and of course the power cable, also included in the box. Next is the stand. The stand is one of the best I have ever seen on a monitor of this price and with these specs. The stand adjusts for a very wide range of visibility and comfort. The stand also includes a cable management hole. The buttons on this monitor are one of the only things I do not like. They are hard to know where they are. Accidental button presses are very common, but this is something you can probably overcome as this monitor is outstanding in many other ways. Starting with the OSD, or on-screen display, the OSD is essentially the settings that are on the physical monitor and not on the computer. As I mentioned before, the buttons on this monitor are pretty bad. However, the OSD is not. The OSD is very good compared to most, and it's a shame we don't have good buttons to navigate it with. You have several different sections within the OSD, such as game setting, luminance, color setup, etc. Some of the really cool features of this monitor's firmware include a built-in frame counter and a built-in crosshair. Yes, a built-in crosshair. So that's an added bonus of this monitor. You can hardware cheat. It is, however, useful for some light graphic design, as you know exactly where the middle of your monitor is. If you didn't know already, there are several different types of both G-Sync and FreeSync. G-Sync compatible means that the frame rate of the monitor and the refresh rate of the monitor sync. That means that you will not get anywhere near as much screen tearing without G-Sync or FreeSync. There's also G-Sync, the normal kind, but we're not going to go over that. G-Sync Ultimate supports HDR, but once again, I'm not going to go over that either because it all gets very complicated. What I'm going to recommend is that you watch a video by TechQuickie by clicking the iCard that popped up in the right hand corner right now. This monitor is G-Sync compatible, which is the lowest standard of G-Sync, but some G-Sync is better than no G-Sync. To sum up, FreeSync versus G-Sync compatible is quite literally the same thing, but NVIDIA didn't want to call it FreeSync. There are several different types of FreeSync, and you can also learn more about those by watching another TechQuickie that explains more of the FreeSync standards. As I mentioned before, this is a 144 Hz NVIDIA G-Sync compatible IPS panel. Wow, that's a lot. Now let's start with the 144 Hz. This is very uncommon to find on an IPS panel, let alone for this price. The panel was manufactured by Panda Electronics, which means it was made by a less reputable panel manufacturer. The downsides of this include lower than average brightness at a color accurate level, and lower than average viewing angles than most IPS screens, but still better or about the same as a good VA panel. G-Sync and FreeSync work well as advertised. According to Hardware Unboxed, the response time is far better than most VAs and lower than some TN panels. Remember, this is an IPS panel, typically known for slow response times and low refresh rates, but great viewing angles and color reproduction. Speaking of color reproduction is much better than you might expect, with a coverage of 89% of the DCI-P color space. If you want more details on this, I recommend watching Hardware Unboxed video by clicking on the iCard that popped up in the right corner. As I am mostly into photography and videography, I need a color accurate display, and this is much more accurate than my old monitor. However, it does need some tweaking. So I found the most color accurate settings are these. Yes, the brightness unfortunately has to be set to 45, at least when my monitor is at its most color accurate state. However, that is not to say you can't crank up the brightness when you go into a game. If you wish to look at this chart later, it's also in the description. The other main issue with this monitor is it's always out of stock. Apparently, I'm not the only one who likes this monitor. I may have just gotten lucky, but when we went to buy this monitor, it was out of stock quite literally everywhere. Places or sellers on eBay who had the monitor marked them up by about 2 times the price, if not more. We got ours when it was in stock on Amazon for around an hour before they were back to being sold out. And that was 2 months ago. I know they have been in stock since then, but not when I have looked. We got our 27G2, which is of course the 27-inch model, for $209. We actually wanted to get the 24G2, which is the same monitor but smaller and has a greater pixel density. Either is a great choice though. Section 5. Conclusion. Alright, that just about wraps it up. If you want a more in-depth video on this monitor, or rather its little sister, take a look at Hardware Unboxed video by clicking the iCard that just popped up in the right corner. The 24G2, what they reviewed, is pretty much identical. The color is slightly different, but other than that, I'm Ben, this is Tech2BDiscovered, and I'll see you in the next one.